It's Talk Erie and the Joel and Natalie Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And we want to welcome into our studio here from Wqln, NPR and PBS, Cindy Spizarny and Alyson Amendola. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You got it here. All right, we're a family show. Let's share origin stories. Let's start with you, Cindy. Did you grow up here or did you transplant in?
I am a transplant. I grew up south of Pittsburgh in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. And
Elizabeth.
And I moved to Erie in 1987. So I've been here ever since.
And you, by trade, you came up as an accountant?
I did. Yep.
Did you do CPA work? Or?
I did not. I am not a CPA. My first job was for Rentway.
Oh,
I
wow.
worked there for 13 and a half years.
Wow.
And then when that went down, I left and I went to Wqln, and the rest is history. I've been there for 24 years.
Is there still like a Rentway reunion or something?
No,
like? I mean,
we
that
don't
was.
do that.
Oh,
I still run into people, but
I was going to say that was a pretty established
It was.
organization for a while there. Anyway,
it was,
know.
but no, we have no reunion. I still run into a lot of people. I actually work with one person at Wqln that used to work with me.
Nice.
So. Yeah.
How about you, Allie? Did you grow up here in Erie? Or?
I did. I grew up in Erie, went through the parochial school system, graduated Mercer's Prep, Edinburgh University, so I'm a hometown girl.
Fantastic. Another NPS Laker. Of course, I'm way older than you.
Not
So,
much
yeah.
Joel.
So we are here to talk about Wqln. You know, we've had multiple conversations over the years, whether it was with Tom New or with the public relations folks. And again, Wqln is one of those right in the center of the universe for Erie's culture and experience here. Can you share a little bit about the history of how that all started?
Oh, wow. Wqln actually started back in 1953.
That's shocking.
As well,
yeah.
Wqln, the concept of it,
Right.
Wqln did. So there was a group of local business people who established what was called Educational Television of Pennsylvania. The FCC was offering up bandwidth, so they had the vision to get into the business. So it really, and Bob Chittister, I'm sure you know that name. So the next 14 years after that, Bob took over, and he actually ran the first studio became out of Bob's basement in his house. So, and then in August 13th, 1967, the television station came on air.
And then radio followed.
Radio followed January 7th of 1973.
Oh my gosh!
So,
yeah,
a long time.
That's amazing. Again, you know, an established place there on Upper Peach, right by the interstate, and when you think about the now we're talking, if we're talking 67, we're talking 3 or 4 generations now. Who grew up with QLN?
Yep, with Wqln, Mr. Rogers, PBS. Yep.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. Allie, do you remember, growing up watching this?
Oh, absolutely.
Channel. I mean,
absolutely. And now we actually work on Sesame Street, and so a lot of the listening public knows of Sesame Street, but I love thinking about the transformation because that is probably one of the first things people think of. They think of Wqln, and people our age say, "Oh my gosh, Sesame Street! My kids grew up on Sesame Street and PBS." But it's evolved into so much more. And so whenever I am talking to our members, I always ask them, what's your favorite program? And by and large, they're the historical documentaries that Ken Burns does, or it's Finding Your Roots, programs like that. So we really have evolved from just being Sesame Street.
There's no doubt. I mean, when I think about, my favorites are American Experience, right?
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes I'll watch like Frontline and be challenged and have my eyes roll in the back of my head because it's usually some very, very intense type of reporting and things. But tell us a little bit about how that works. I mean, now you have multiple channels, so you can still watch Sesame Street and all the kids shows. My daughter grew up on Dragon Tales and the Big Comfy Couch and Clifford, Big Red Dog, right? Now they still run during the day, but then there's also these channels where like PBS Kids can run
Right.
all day long, right?
Yep, we have 4 channels. We have 54.1, which is kids from 9 to noon every day, and then it's adult programming, for the rest of the night. We have 54.2, which is our create programming. It's cooking shows, how-to shows, building shows, arts and crafts. 54.3 is our world channel, so it's a lot of documentaries. And then 54.4 is, like you said, it's a 24/7 kids channel.
And do you have any ideas, either through Nielsen or whatever, like the kind of consumption of, and probably also online, because you could watch some of these things online, right?
We do get Nielsen's. We haven't subscribed to them for a long time because they are expensive.
Sure.
They're cost prohibitive. So, but I mean, the 24 Kids channel is great for parents that work late. Their kids have a safe place to watch. They don't have to worry about what they're watching. So,
sure.
Educational.
And we do have a programmer on staff who watches that very closely. And he's involved with a statewide coalition who kind of talks about all the programs and kind of sees what people are watching. I mean, the old tried and true, people are still watching Lawrence Welk. We still have a great audience for Lawrence Welk. But, like we chatted earlier, we've got all these other different programs, mostly historical in nature. Although I will say, Masterpiece on Sunday night. There's nothing like it. And the demographic runs from, a 25-year-old demographic up to like 85. So it seems like Sunday nights, a lot of women, but a lot of men are watching Masterpiece as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is the origin of, Call the Midwife.
Yes.
The origin of, God's Creature is Great and Small. You just start naming off all of the different brands and the different programs.
It's not just Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey was so big.
Popular,
but you're right. The Call the Midwives, All Creatures Great and Small, very popular.
Sure. Go ahead.
I was going to say Antiques Roadshow is another really popular one, and Finding Your Roots is very popular amongst both men and women. So
The Roadshow. That was at one point, it was very much of a phenomenon. You know, as far as people digging through what they have. Or, I think I have something exactly like that. Right?
Finding treasures. It's awesome.
My gosh. Yeah. The and how do I'm sure most of us don't really understand how it works, right? We know that, okay, if you have like a TV special with David Foster or something, there might be a call for an ask to buy an item or to pledge something, and you get a gift or whatever. But that's not the entirety of the funding structure. It's pretty. Well, share what that's all about. How do these stations stay on the air?
Well, a lot of it is we get funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting that was created for that purpose to fund local stations. And that's what's in jeopardy right now. So we get 40% of our funding from Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We get about 35% from membership. The pledge dollars, the pledge shows you're talking about. We don't pledge all the time. We do a spring and a fall radio show, and then we do probably 4 pledge shows throughout the year on television. 2 weeks.
Is that's all it is?
That's all it is. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
But we also get funding from our special events. We held an annual auction, which we just finished our 57th annual auction.
How'd it go?
It went well.
Good.
The public is very generous. The people are addicted to it. It's funny to watch, but people love it. We also have a golf tournament that we started in September, and then we have a craft show also that we had for 33 years before COVID, and then we just brought it back last year, and it was very successful.
Yeah, that's the big one at Rainbow Gardens. Yeah, the craft show.
So,
wow. And that's basically, how many do you think are like me, where I'm just on that monthly deal, sustaining.
We probably have about 60.
Well, and part of it is it's I want the passport, so
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's something for me in that.
Right. Of course, but we have about 6,700 members.
6,700. But they're the sustaining members supporting the whole kit and caboodle.
Well, we do have members, and a membership is $60 a year, and somebody can pay $60 or whatever they want to pay to become a member. But the sustaining members that we're talking about are people who give at least $5 per month, sort of in perpetuity until it changes or something else happens. So sustainers are a large part of our membership, and we love our sustainers. We love all of our members, but particularly sustainers because that's revenue we can rely on month to month. And luckily, we have a strong, loyal, supportive base of sustainers who help support WQLN.
Talk about when well, you know what? I'm going to take my break first because I want to get into this, but yeah, let's take the break and then we'll jump into this. We're talking to Alyson, we're talking to Cindy from WQLN, and we'll get into kind of the current issue here when we come back. It's Talk Erie, the Joel and Natalie show here at 105.9 WZTE. We're talking to Cindy Spizarny and Alyson Amendola. They're with WQLN, PBS, and NPR, and public media. One of the best things to come out of Sesame Street there on Upper Peach is the QLN Chronicles, and right now the latest episode is on Keller, the magician, and so and what's so cool is that you can watch it on demand on the free side of the paywall.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would imagine that has sparked a lot. The multiple seasons of Chronicles, right?
I mean, Chronicles is so unique. It's so unique for WQLN. Hats off. I got to shout out to Mike Berlin and his team of Chronicles who came in there. And, I have to say, some of the Chronicles team maybe didn't have that skill when they came in. So it truly was a labor of love and B, an educational program. Mm-hmm. So at its heart, it was an educational program. And then they would sit around and see and discuss and brainstorm what kind of stories from the Lake Erie region they could come up with. And I'm so glad you mentioned Keller, especially coming downtown. I will never look at the comedy club the same way again. That story was brilliant. Yeah. And we just had the Black Bourgeoisie episode, which if you haven't seen it, it is powerful, it is meaningful, and everybody within the listening audience should watch that episode.
Yeah, every one of the episodes has knocked me out. I mean, including the one with the aliens landing out at the beach here. Yeah,
it's a great reenactment.
It's a great. So we went into the break here of how the finances work, and you said 40% of your income comes from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, and that is used for your operations, but it's also used to buy programming, right? How does that? Tell us how that.
We do buy
transaction
programming
works.
with the money from CPB. There's certain things we're allowed to use the money for, and programming is one of them. So we buy programming from both PBS and NPR. And of the 1.2 million, the programming from PBS and NPR is about $750,000.
So the money comes to you locally, and then it goes to
Then we
PBS
buy the programming from PBS and NPR.
And NPR. And I would imagine that as people are more aware about, hey, this documentary's been written and whatever, they're going to be expecting that our local affiliate would have that available, right?
Correct. Yep.
It's not like you can just blow off
No.
running
we don't.
something
Right,
that's on,
exactly.
especially on prime time, I would
Right.
think, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah. And, there's national promos out there and other stations have it. So you're exactly right, Joel.
Everybody.
and the same thing happens with radio. I remember, I want to say years ago, it was Marketplace that got expensive, and it was a tight time for Wqln FM at the time, and they dropped it.
We did.
And listeners weren't happy about that very much.
And as a dual licensee station, we have expenses of programming over here on the radio side. We have expenses over here on the TV side. Like Cindy said, it's over $750,000. And the federal government appropriates funding 2 years in advance. And the way it was set up is the funding is appropriated. It comes down through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and there's a formula as to how much each station gets. For us, it's 40% of the budget, but also we live in an area, like we talked earlier, of very loyal supporters. So public media the intent wasn't to be a big burden on our community. Yes, it comes from the federal government, but we rely on those donations that are $60, $120, $500. And, we have people who have been giving for 50 years or so. Sure. And they put their trust in us, and it's programming they rely on.
You mentioned 40% from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, 35% from donors. Where's that other 25% come in?
It comes from underwriting.
Underwriting?
Underwriting.
About 7% of underwriting. Cindy talked about special events, and depends on the year too. So fiscal year 24, say special events were about 10%, a couple grants here and there, but really by and large, member support and money from CPB. Really holds us together.
One of those questions that comes up a lot around here is a lot of times, the Erie ratios are not the same as, let's say, in your case, the television and radio stations may be in Johnstown, Altoona, or State College, or Dayton, Ohio. How do you measure up on your percentages? Do you when you talk to your peers in public broadcasting, are we lined up with them? Or are we soft in donors? Are we soft in corporation? I'm just asking the question.
No, that's a great question. I meet every week with the other 6 Pennsylvania stations in Harrisburg and
the
Philadelphia.
PPTN.
It used to be PPTN. Isn't
Right.
it? No,
Yes.
PPTN has been dissolved.
Okay.
But, it's hard. We talk numbers, but obviously we're the smallest in Pennsylvania.
You are.
We are. So
I guess it is the smallest
WQED
market,
is
isn't it?
bigger. Everyone's bigger than us. Philadelphia, obviously, WHYY is the largest.
Yeah.
They're a $60 million station.
60?
60. So their loss of funding is about 5%. So they can make up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Easier than we can. But Penn State's also another one, WPSU, and they're losing their CPB funding, and they also took a cut from Penn State that funds them.
Sure.
So they're getting double whammy this year. But it's
But
hard.
as far as your percentages,
as far as members versus
are your corporation percentages higher than the other guys?
Yes. As far as what we're depending on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, absolutely.
And so what is this in dollars and cents?
$1.2 million.
$1.2 million. And what is the current legislation that's up right now for defunding? Is it defunding all of it? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, that's the rescission package that went to Congress that we've been talking about. As I mentioned earlier, funds are appropriated 2 years in advance. So we're talking about fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. That was appropriated in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. So that's the package we're talking about that went to Congress. And a vote, from what we hear, is expected next week. We don't know the outcome right now of that. If they vote to accept the rescission package, it will rescind all of the funding for public media across the nation. And, what is it, Cindy, over $1 billion?
1.1 billion.
1.1 billion. And it does factor down to $1.60 per person per year going down. We're not alone. We know there's a number of worthy organizations across the nation and right here in this community that are facing funding cuts. For our own organization, as Cindy mentioned, that would be a 40% cut and $1.2 million a year. And while we have very generous, very loyal supporters, without federal funding, that would be a drastic impact to the services we could provide.
Yeah, I can't imagine just a 40% cut
Yeah.
of anything,
Yeah.
of your household budget.
Oh my gosh. And like we were talking about the fixed expenses, and Cindy certainly could speak to some of those, but you said, Joel, what is your electric bill? Oh my gosh. Just the fixed expenses that we have up there to run WQLN are expensive.
Yeah. The rescission is coming from kind of a way to placate the deficit hawks. Is that how it's playing out in Congress as you see it, or you really don't want to go there?
Yeah, I can't say for sure because there's been so much different rhetoric for months. I mean, Cindy and I have been thinking about this, looking at it since July or August of last year, kind of knowing, because there have been different Congress people across the country saying, I want to defund PBS, or I want to defund NPR, or let's do this and that. So we have kind of been tracking all of those draft proposals to defund public media in one way or another. And communication is changing every day. Before the rescission package went forward, President Trump had already issued an executive order saying that if money goes to CPB down to the stations, you cannot use it for NPR and PBS. So we thought, okay, well, maybe there's still a shot that they're negotiating that in some way, shape, or form, we will still get this money. We just can't use that bucket of money to pay for dues for PBS and NPR. But if the rescission package moves forward, then the EO is null and void because we wouldn't have the funding anyway.
If you guys are willing to hang in there, I want to take our bottom of the hour break and talk about what might be some of the thinking behind it, and what are some of the solutions, and what are some of the action points that listeners and viewers, again, if you're dealing with a significant part of the population, over almost 7,000 households who have said, hey, we're standing so much with QLN that we are ponying up our own cash, then they might want to write a note, or make a phone call or send an email. We're talking to Cindy Spizarny and Alyson Amendola. They're from WQLN. It's Joel and Natalie show here on Talk Erie. Stay with us. News is next. We're having a media day here on this Friday edition of the Joel and Natalie Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. With us from Wqln is Cindy Spizarny and Alyson Amendola. And we're talking about the current situation with federal funding and rescission package that is the latest kind of development here. Let's make sure we wrap that in a bow before I go into kind of, what are some of the solutions here. The latest reporting is that I think it's being looked at in Congress to rescind this money that was allocated now 2 years ago.
Correct. Yes.
So would it make an impact as of October 1st, that fiscal year?
It will have
FY 26,
You're right. It will have an impact July 1st.
July 1st?
Of 25, which will be fiscal year 26 for us.
For you guys,
it'll impact fiscal year 26, 27, and right now public media is not in the budget for fiscal year 28. So we really rely on that dedicated federal funding.
All right. So how did we get here? And again, you guys mentioned that that you've been talking about the possibility. There's been threats for quite a while, right?
There has been threats. Nothing to this extent, but there have been threats throughout the years.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? I'd love to hear your opinion. And I've got some ideas of what I'm hearing, Or maybe I'll go. I'll start with, and you can reply.
How about
so there are some folks that they just think they have a free market preference. That stuff is available in the free market. We don't need to have our own public entity. But honestly, though, don't pretty much every Western country have some kind of public media outlet? I mean.
Oh, yeah. The principle of public media, as President Johnson set it up in 1967, the premise was educational quality content for both radio and TV. So at least in this nation, and many states support public media to a great extent. But the federal funding was there that would be given to the local broadcast stations. So while it sounds like, this federal funding, the intent was that it would funnel down to the local broadcast stations in each community.
And now Pennsylvania has kind of withdrawn their funding, right? Or do they do some?
We did lose our funding in 2008.
That's I remember that.
That's when PPTN was around.
Yeah.
But we have gotten funding back, not to the extent, but we are funded through the DCED.
Okay, through
the DCED.
community development. Okay.
Yes.
So that's how that goes.
Yeah.
So what was that? Is that part of your 40%, or you had that?
No, that's
at the tail end of the 25.
Yeah, that's at the tail end of the 25. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Here's something that I hear a lot about is that there's this liberal bias in the reporting in some of the programming on PBS and NPR. I'm going to say this as an editorial comment. I didn't think that the leader of NPR served herself or the network very well. She was pretty caustic in front of Congress. Are you hearing that same thing where they're just you're kind of getting lumped in to the NPR thing?
Yeah, certainly that was a tough hearing for those two ladies, and I give Catherine and Paula so much credit. Both great leaders individually in what they've done. Paula has been with PBS, gosh, Cindy, how long?
Over 20 years.
20 years, and does a remarkable job. And, certainly from time to time, we do have listeners or viewers call. Of course, we are the community's public media, so we want to hear those comments. And when we do hear those comments, we pass them on to PBS and NPR as well. And as conduits of those programs, we do supply programming on radio from NPR as well as PBS, the national programming. So, I can't say every program that goes on that we might go, wince a little bit over here.
Yeah.
We'd be crazy if we didn't say that. But by and large, it is unbiased media, we feel. That is why we share it. Our listeners and viewers enjoy it. Because we do pay particular attention to the feedback we get. And we have made changes over the years of programmings that, just didn't feed the appetite of the community. So we really keep our ears to the ground when it comes to that.
And you have some choices, like on the radio side, there's multiple creators, right, that you're able to choose from. right? I mean, I'm thinking of This American Life. I'm sure that's a highly appreciated program, right? I mean,
Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
I was going to say, we don't just buy from NPR.
Right.
And we buy, like you said, This American Life's from PRX.
Yeah.
And we buy programming not from PBS also. We buy from, American Public Television. There's a variety of outlets for us to buy programming from.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And the variety of programs on radio. I mean, I think we're most known for, WQLN NPR programming or program from NPR, but we don't have a local news program. So we get those national programs, but also we have 14 volunteer hosts, and they have radio shows like Sonic Sounds and, of course, Classics with Brian Hanna. He's not volunteer host, he's on staff.
Yeah.
But, jazz and blues and swing and all those, we have volunteer hosts who have been there 50 years.
Yeah, Rob Hoff has done Jazz Flight 4 nights a week.
It's
for
incredible.
53 years.
The dedication of that, of Rob.
Even Aubrey Dillon. I mean, he's been there since 1992. These are volunteer hosts that do a program 4 nights a week. That's a lot. And they do it because they love it, and the community enjoys what they produce.
And I would imagine, again, that fuels that connection with your donors here. One more thing on the politics, and again, do you think that, like the national, like NPR especially, would be more responsive, or are they going to kind of dig in their heels? I mean, I think one of the big things came out of that testimony is that there's some 80-some reporters, and none of them were noted to be a Republican. I mean, that doesn't indicate a whole lot of diversity of ideology, right?
Yeah, that certainly was a statistic that came out that I think everybody, took notice of.
Yeah.
And Catherine, I think, tried to address it during the hearing, but I'm sure that after that hearing, they went back. I haven't, we haven't been shared any updates to that, but that was certainly something they need to look at.
And I think it's important that we understand that that's the national. We're talking about local folks here.
Yes.
Correct.
Another one is redundancy in the media landscape, that there's an abundance of content now in the digital age. And so public media wouldn't be no longer essential. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the media landscape has definitely changed over the past, even 5 years, where there is a lot of options to obtain media. But, once again, we offer media to the public, no matter what the zip code is. It's free to anybody who wants to listen, anybody that wants to watch. We focus on educational programming, a lot of kids' educational programming on TV. So, I mean, I think it's all about choices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like Ali said, we don't have local news. So, we provide NPR for the updates, the morning edition and the All Things Considered. So,
talk about, have you talked to viewers or listeners about how essential the programming is to their lives and to their families?
Oh, we've had many, many calls of people who just, would, it's a lifeline for a lot of people. You know what I mean? The elderly, they watch it, it's a part of their lives, and they would, miss it greatly. So we have heard from more positives than negatives, I would say.
And, WQLN isn't just programming either. We have several pillars of public safety and community connections, and definitely educational outreach. Our national award-winning educational department does so much good in the community. They reach thousands of children during the summer in the neighborhoods that need it the most, delivering resources and tools to our youngest community members to prepare them for their next steps. A lot of those children do not attend formal preschool. So talk about essential services, our educational content and our educational department, who goes around not just to Erie, but out into the county as well. Those are true essential services. And that's another program that is, if we're impacted by federal funding, we're just not talking about the programming that people watch and listen to. We're talking about those grassroots programs that are true outreach in the community.
Do you feel that you're kind of a victim getting kind of sucked up into the larger organizations? There's a question here about self-sufficiency and ability to operate without subsidies. I mean, if you have an HYY who's it's going to be impacted by, they're going to go from 100 to 95% funding. That's something they can handle. When you're going from 100 to 60%.
Right.
of what you've been funded. That's a whole different ball game.
It is a whole different ballgame, and it's worrisome for us. I mean, we've been, like Ali said, we've been looking at this since July and August, trying to figure out different scenarios and different ideas. But like we talked about, the electric bill's $12,000 a month.
Yeah.
The tower rent is $12,000 a month to rent the towers. So I mean, those are fixed, real expenses that we're trying to figure out creative ways to move forward. So.
I mean, you've been doing grant announcements for as long as you've been in existence. There's no like business savior that's gonna fill that gap.
And we're talking $1.2 million a year. We're not just talking a one-time $1.2 million, which we could probably absorb. But every year we have to come up with another $1.2 million.
All right, let's talk about some of the reasons why federal funding is important, and we touched on a bunch of these, but the public good and the educational mission, that is still the pillar, isn't it?
It is. It's a very important pillar to us. The other one is we're the next gen warning system. So any warning that comes through, whether it's tornado, hurricane, snowstorm, comes through Wqln and all the public media stations. And we have 5 different translators out in the rural areas. Oil City and Titusville, Warren and Meadville.
Yeah.
Yep, and those are for the cell signals aren't as strong out there, so people, that is their only way to hear the warning. They're Amber Alerts, so if they can't get it through their cell phone, and that's very important, and they would lose that.
People need to understand, and we just noted the 40th anniversary of the Albion tornadoes, right? And I was in broadcasting during that time, and on Erie, and I remember going to, in the early 90s, so this is 5 years later or so, 2 meetings at Wqln where they were creating they were mandated by the feds to create a new emergency alert system, and the existing broadcasters, which were commercial broadcasters, were saying we don't want to do it anymore, and Wqln took the reins. Especially on the NPR station, which again was at 35,000 watts. At the time, there were no translators, but they were the main feed for all of us smaller stations. And again, it's here we are 40 some years later, and they're still the lead.
We're still the lead.
The top station. Access and equity, universal availability. Yeah, there really is. There really is no. You don't have to be a rich person to watch Wqln.
Right.
It's free.
It's free. Yep.
If you have a TV, you can get it.
And that's absolutely right. And that's what was established too, that anyone can watch it free of charge. That's how it was established in 1967. That's what they wanted it to be.
Yeah,
Regardless of zip code, you can get the programming. So
if you have a leaf antenna, you don't even need a cable connection, right?
It's true. You
can watch it on your phone, right? Nonpartisan and trustworthy news, high public trust. The surveys consistently show that NPR and PBS are among the most trusted news sources in the U.S., partly because they are less driven by ratings or advertising. So again, there's another point of view, right? I mean, as far as people think that it's too left wing. But actually, the public in general says it's right down the middle. It's the most trusted.
And not only that, but we have had, support from all over, bipartisan support for a number of years of Wqln. And, surveys have shown that a number of people, a large majority of people, upwards of 65% of people who voted for President Trump would say that public media is either underfunded or just adequately funded, but wouldn't be calling for defunding of public media.
Right. To that end, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gets a tiny fraction of the federal budget, $500 million annually, out of trillions that are spent, and it has quite a bit of leverage. You get a lot of bang for your buck, right? I mean, yeah. Finally, support for local stations, local voices and things. I know you don't have a regular news show, but you do have shows that are local, both on NPR and on PBS. We just mentioned Chronicles, but also I'm thinking of, folks like Marcus Atkinson's next show. And what are some of the other specialty programs. I mean, is Tom Pye still doing his show?
Tom Pye's is July will be his last month. Of
Oh my
doing
gosh!
that. Yep.
We question and learn,
We
right?
question and learn. We are looking for somebody else to take the show over because it's an important show. But
Sure.
Tom's about ready to retire from that also. So he's done that for 23 years.
Unbelievable.
That show. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot of dedicated volunteers that to put their time in. Chris and Julie Moore do Next to You show, radio show, a radio show, and Bill Moon and Larry Wheaton do Sonic Sounds, which is more the Def Leppard rock and roll.
And you mentioned Rob Hoff, and I'm thinking Al Lubajeski.
Oh,
my
gosh,
goodness,
yeah.
those jazz swing classics programs.
I used to
those guys
play that
just
for
love
my
them.
kids.
Yeah.
We would be coming home on a Saturday night. We're gonna put up some jazz, some swing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they just loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I loved it too.
It's
of
good
course.
stuff. And, mixing in the podcast that we have as well. So we'd love to see more of that.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. All right, we're down to our last couple minutes with our friends from Wqln. Let's talk about action points here. So, listeners, they depend on QLN. What should they do?
Well, the biggest thing and the most urgent thing, and I'm talking right now, I'm talking today, visit protectmypublicmedia.org. We are still in this fight. There might be a vote next week, but we have not given up. Public media stations across the country have not given up. We are knocking on the door of trying to get this rescission package to fail. And so we are urging the public to visit protectmypublicmedia.org. I say it's quick, it's easy, and it's important. When you visit that website.
Have you had any conversations with Congressman Kelly or Senator Fetterman or Senator McCormick?
We do send them legislative updates, but not one-on-one meetings with them. Of course, we get media inquiries because we're a smaller station and because the 40% is going to affect us more. But like Cindy said, she works with her counterparts across the state. And as one, we're trying to, fight this together. So we're not just hanging out there. And Cindy can attest to this, that the bigger stations truly care about the smaller stations. And sometimes that gets lost because in the national conversation, it's, this defunding would not give money to NPR, not give money to PBS, but it drills down to many local stations who rely on that funding. And in a community like ours, as I said earlier, there's a formula that we don't need to get into as to why it's 40% for us or what our dues are to NPR and to PBS. But on the flip side of that is that we are built on, like I said earlier, the $60 donation, the $100 donations, and loyal supporters and donors. And if somebody can't even afford that we provide quality, accessible, enriching public media to anybody in any zip code.
So, again, what's the website?
protectmypublicmedia.org. And while you're there, you can just drop down and click on the template. If you want to add something personal, you can, but you can send it right to our representatives. And our representatives were elected to meet the needs of our community. They want to hear from us. I know that they're getting a number of comments and calls and things like that. It's a difficult time. I know that they have a large budget. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, geez, if I was at the federal level, I'd be looking to cut here and there. But public media is more than just NPR programming or PBS programming. We're in this fight to keep quality media in this area. The educational component, the outreach services that we do, for instance, Sounds Around Town. We focus on regional and local talent, and then we air those on TV. So, there's a number of ways that we connect so many organizations in this community.
Fantastic. And you have a video on the website, right? WQLN?
Yes.
Where you kind of explain this dilemma as well, Cindy, right?
We have several videos out there. I know Ella just posted one yesterday. Just went up too, so.
Fantastic.
We're trying to keep it fresh.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. Again, Cindy Spizarny and Alyson Amendola, WQLN, NPR, PBS, and public media. Find out more about this situation that they're in. And again, I think when you think about QLN and growing up and what your kids grew up with, I remember the electric company when I was, a wee one, I mean, think about it. It's been part of our lives my whole life, so.
Can't imagine Erie without it.
No.
So.
Exactly. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the conversation, Joel.
You got it. It's 5 in front of 5 o'clock. Talk Erie. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show here on a Friday. When we get back from the news, we will take a look and see what some of the events that are happening over the weekend here. Is this the second full weekend since Memorial Day, right? And so lots always jam-packed in those 12 weeks between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So stay with us. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show.